Story 1. On a blustery, rainy day in the last week of May 1982, while I was still a cadet at the Philippine Military Academy in Baguio City, Philippines, an exam was scheduled for 10 a.m. After the exam, a fellow cadet and I planned to meet for snacks. He set off before me, and I trailed behind. What happened next was utterly beyond the ordinary. As I walked, I found myself on a pathway lined with rocks and stones. A faceless being, shrouded in black, appeared before me, urging me to follow him. I refused and fled up the path, only to encounter him again beside a well of similar make. Despite his persistent requests, I stood firm in my refusal. In an attempt to resolve the standoff, I suggested a test of strength using 2 rocks, one whole and one flat. I proposed that if he could break my rock, I would follow him, but if I broke his, he would have to let me go. As fate would have it, I succeeded in breaking his. Suddenly, I was transported to a realm atop a mass of clouds alongside 3 other men. We were surrounded by a gaping hole that revealed a bright blue sky. Before us stood a long stairway descending into the unknown, missing its 4th step. As 2 of the men ventured down without hesitation, my turn approached, and fear gripped me at the thought of falling. The man behind me warned that refusal to descend would mean remaining in this place forever. Summoning my courage, I took the step, only to find myself running down a road bordered by tall, golden yellow grass, a brilliant round light shining at its end. Upon reaching the light, reality snapped back. I awoke under the harsh glow of an emergency room light, with the commandant of cadets questioning my awareness of the situation. My memory halted at stepping out of the classroom, a detail I shared with him. He informed me that I had been electrocuted by a 3.3 kilovolts electrical wire, severed by the strong winds. Fortuitously, a plumber walking the same route had found me in time. This story was shared by Jose Fifth and happened in May 1982.
Story 2. Over the summer, just before my 7th birthday, I was enjoying a day at summer camp with my mates. The heat made me dizzy, and I began experiencing tunnel vision while joking and play-fighting with my brother. I don't recall the moment I passed out, but what followed was extraordinarily peculiar. I found myself seated on a porch swing alongside a boy about my age, someone I didn't recognize. He engaged me in conversation, asking simple things like how old I was. As we spoke, the swing moved gently, gradually gaining height, and I could see myself below, surrounded by other campers. Despite my polite responses to his questions, a sense of nervousness grew within me as we ascended, with thick, pinkish-white clouds enveloping us, making me feel increasingly distant from the ground. Eventually, anxiety overtook me, and I expressed my need to return, fearing my mum would worry. Awakening to the sound of one of the camp counselors shouting at me, his words were initially inaudible. Then, abruptly, sound returned, overwhelmingly loud, with shouts all around and the counselor urgently imploring me to wake up. Reflecting on it now, he seemed so young, likely no more than 16. A friend's mum, also a counselor, quickly came to my aid, lifting me up. It was then that I became acutely aware of my head injury, and tears followed. All I wanted was to sleep. This experience is something I seldom share, wary of disbelief or dismissiveness. Yet listening to Theo Vaughn's podcast, I felt a sudden urge to share. The identity of the boy remains a mystery, but the memory of that moment lingers with me still. This story was shared by Linda M. and happened in 1997.
Story 3. In the midst of a sweltering summer in the borderlands of Georgia and South Carolina, my aunt and uncle extended an invitation for me and my 3 sisters to join them on a camping excursion whilst my mum was at work. Naturally, we leapt at the chance. However, my aunt and uncle had a penchant for the bottle and were somewhat lax in supervising us kids by the water. With 2 older sisters and 1 younger, my cousins, being older, drew much of the attention away from me, leaving me somewhat overlooked in the aquatic hierarchy. Considering myself quite the proficient swimmer for my age, I overestimated my abilities and ventured too far, losing my ability to touch the lake bed. Exhaustion began to set in, and in an attempt to conserve energy, I planned to let myself sink and then push off the bottom to resurface. Alas, the bottom was nowhere within reach. Gasping for breath and unable to find my footing, I tried in vain to swim towards the shore, only to find myself submerged once again. Panic surged through me as I realized I was sinking, about 4 feet below the surface, my arm reaching upwards but failing to break through the water. Then, quite suddenly, everything went pitch black. Not the eerie darkness one might find unsettling, but rather a comforting, all-encompassing void that brought with it an inexplicable peace. My body ceased its frantic struggle, yet my mind remained acutely aware, pondering over how long it might take before I was found. Despite the situation, I felt an overwhelming sense of calm and acceptance. resigning myself to the fact that I had indeed drowned. At just 9 years old, the thought crossed my mind that it was a bit of a shame, but curiously, it didn't seem to matter all that much in the grand scheme of things. Time lost all meaning in that dark tranquility, leaving me unsure of how long I lingered in that state. Thoughts of my family fluttered through my mind until, quite abruptly, I was back at the surface, gasping for air. To this day, I'm unsure whether it was a casual rescue by someone unaware of my distress or something else entirely. My eldest sister, who had always been cautious about my swimming, was nearby, her back to me, and she never spoke of the incident. Emerging alone from the water, coughing and sapped of strength, I collapsed onto the sand in sheer exhaustion. Unbeknownst to my aunt and uncle, and unnoticed by all, I chose not to speak of my ordeal, fearing reprimand and the potential ban from returning to the water. Besides, who would believe such a tale? This story was shared by James L. and happened in July 1973.
Story 4. On the morning of January 15, 1987, I found myself in a state far removed from the eager anticipation my partner harbored for the day. Barely conscious and enveloped in what felt like my final hours, his sudden re-entry into our tiny room ablaze with the thrill of adventure couldn't have contrasted more sharply with my desire for solitude and peace. His insistence on embarking on a flight seemed ludicrous, especially as I grappled with an illness that seemed bent on claiming me. The room felt like my sanctuary, my bed a raft in the storm of my sickness, yet here he was, determined to strip that away. The world outside was engulfed in a blizzard, the kind that erased boundaries and blurred the lines between earth and sky. His optimism, fueled by a meteorologist's assurance that the storm's ceiling lay below our intended altitude, struck me as madness. The notion of ascending into the heavens in a hot air balloon, a fragile vessel at the mercy of the elements, seemed to me a folly of the highest order. My protests fell on deaf ears. The decision had been made, and my resistance was futile. Ascending into the sky, every fiber of my being vibrated with a cocktail of terror and exhilaration. The earthly tumult below us gave way to a serene otherworldliness as we pierced through the cloud cover into a realm of ethereal beauty. Surrounded by other balloons, the scene took on a surreal quality, reminiscent of a whimsical dream where reality is suspended, and the only rule is the unexpected. This journey, however, took a turn into the unfathomable when I found myself detached from my body, a spectator to the scene below. This disembodiment brought a profound realization. We are not merely our physical forms. What followed was a transcendence into a realm beyond the physical, a place where time and space were concepts without meaning. It was here that I encountered my late grandmother, a reunion that bridged decades of separation and a lifetime of unspoken grief. Her presence, a testament to the enduring nature of love, transcended the physical boundaries that had once separated us. Our journey through this celestial landscape was a revelation, an unveiling of truths long hidden by the limitations of human perception. I learned that reality is a tapestry of interconnected moments, each a thread in the greater design of existence. This understanding was not merely intellectual but visceral, a knowledge felt in the soul. As this voyage through the afterlife unfolded, I was greeted by the essences of those who had touched my life, each encounter a confirmation of the indelible impact we have on each other's journeys. The culmination of this experience was a profound communication, a message that resonated with the core of my being. It spoke of purpose, of legacy, and of the interconnectedness of all things. This odyssey, marked by encounters both mystical and deeply personal, concluded with a return to the living world, but not as the person who had left it. I was transformed, imbued with a sense of purpose and a deep understanding of the continuity of existence. The boundaries between life and death, once perceived as impenetrable, now appeared porous, mere waypoints in the endless cycle of being. In the aftermath of this experience, the world seemed imbued with a deeper richness, each moment a precious stitch in the fabric of eternity. The journey had been one of transcendence, a voyage beyond the veil of mortality into the heart of the eternal. It was a reminder that we are, in essence, beings of light and love, connected by threads unseen but profoundly felt, a part of a greater whole that dances to the music of the universe. This story was shared by Lynn Claire D. and happened twice in 1987, and then 1991 and 2001.